Right now, like as you listen to this, your brain is doing something pretty wild.
Oh, absolutely. It's working overtime.
Yeah, it's actively deciding if I am a friend or a threat. You are picking up on the cadence of my voice, the pauses between my words, and, the inflection at the end of my sentences.
And you're doing all of this entirely subconsciously.
Exactly. You're relying on this evolutionary threat detection system that was built literally millions of years ago. We always think of communication as just the words we type in an email or the sentences we say in a meeting.
Right. The explicit stuff.
But the reality is that the actual script of your life, the deciding factor in whether people trust you, hire you, date you, or just subconsciously pull away, is written in a silent language of cues you probably don't even know you're broadcasting.
What's fascinating here is that the data we're unpacking today is so critical for that exact reason. We're looking at the mechanics of human connection through a massive cultural touchstone.
It is massive. We are talking about a viral interview from the Diary of a CEO featuring body language and communication expert Vanessa Van Edwards.
Yeah, and the scale of this conversation is just staggering. Over 12.6 million people have watched this single interview.
Which is insane. So Vanessa is the founder of Science of People and the best-selling author of Captivate and Cues. And in this source material, she breaks down the micro behaviors that dictate human social hierarchies.
But the underlying phenomenon here, the reason 12 million people are desperately seeking a manual on how to be likable points to a pretty severe modern deficit.
You mean how we've forgotten how to just talk to each other?
Exactly. We are so hyper-connected digitally, yet our biological, real-world social muscles have completely atrophied.
So true. So in this deep dive, we are going to explore everything from the resting bee face effect to the 97 cues to be warm and competent. We'll even get into why something as simple as your AirPods might be literally ruining your social life.
That AirPod section is going to blow people's minds.
I know, right? But before we dive into specific tricks, I want to challenge this really pervasive, almost fatalistic belief that charisma is just a genetic lottery. You either have it or you don't.
Right, the idea that the James Bond archetype just emerges from the womb knowing exactly how to hold eye contact.
Yeah, while everyone else is doomed to be the person sweating by the snack table at a networking event. But Vanessa opens her discussion by labeling herself a recovered awkward person.
I love that phrase so much.
Me too. She completely dismantles charisma as a genetic trait and recategorizes it as a learnable fluency.
And that's so important because the fatalism you're describing is actually a massive cognitive trap. When someone labels themselves as fundamentally awkward, they initiate this devastating self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wait, how so? Like mechanically, what's happening?
Well, in cognitive behavioral psychology, this is known as a confirmation bias loop. If you enter a social environment believing you're awkward, your brain acts as a filter. It actively searches for data to validate that exact identity.
Oh, wow. So if I stumble over just one word.
Exactly. If you stumble over a single syllable, your brain flags it like, see, we are awkward. And that internal flagging literally spikes your cortisol levels.
So the anxiety becomes physical.
Right, that anxiety manifests physically. Your shoulders hunch, your breathing becomes shallow, your vocal cords tighten up. You end up projecting stiff, defensive body language.
Which makes other people uncomfortable around you.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that makes them pull away, which just confirms your initial belief. So the social friction isn't genetic at all. It's a mechanical byproduct of your own internal narrative.
Okay, so the first step in mastering these cues isn't learning some new body language trick. It's literally dismantling the identity of awkwardness.
That is step one. And the framework provided for that in the source is the concept of the ambivert.
Now, I feel like anyone who follows personality psychology knows the introvert-extrovert spectrum, so we probably don't need to relitigate the basics of how people recharge their social batteries.
Right, we all know introverts need alone time and extroverts need people time.
Yeah. But what is highly applicable here is how identifying as an ambivert literally changes your biological baseline when you walk into a room.
Well, it changes the baseline because it removes the cognitive load of performance. The rigid binary of introvert versus extrovert forces people into performing an identity.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is completely exhausting. If you're an introvert at a party, you might feel the need to perform extroversion. But the ambivert framework acknowledges that you possess both neurological toolkits.
So you're not just one or the other.
Exactly. You have the capacity to upregulate your dopamine and outward energy when the situation demands it. and you have the capacity to downregulate into thoughtful observation without feeling like you're failing at the interaction.
It essentially grants you permission to dynamically adapt to the environment rather than fighting it. But okay, let's unpack this for a second. Let me push back on that.
Sure, go ahead.
If someone identifies deeply as an introverted, quiet observer, and they suddenly start employing all these learned, extroverted cues that Vanessa teaches, opening their posture, modulating their voice, doesn't that just make them look inauthentic?
That's a super common concern.
Right. Like, am I not just putting on a mask that's inevitably going to slip?
The friction there comes from a misunderstanding of what authenticity actually looks like biologically. Learning these cues is not about fabricating a fake personality.
Okay, then what is it doing?
It's about removing the physical barriers that are currently obscuring your actual intentions. Think about your resting posture for a second.
Okay, I'm thinking about it.
If your natural, quote-unquote, authentic state involves crossed arms and a downward gaze, the people around you are not seeing the thoughtful, introverted you.
What are they seeing?
Their amygdala. The fear center of their brain is perceiving a defensive, closed-off wall. So learning a cue to uncross your arms and level your gaze isn't an act of deception.
It's just removing the interference.
Exactly. You're just clearing the static so your genuine personality can be received accurately. It's like the difference between faking a song and simply tuning the instrument so the notes ring true.
Oh, I love that analogy. You're just tuning the instrument. Which brings us perfectly to the most visible instrument we have, the face.
Yes, the face. This is where it gets really tactical.
And we have to talk about the resting bee face effect. People throw it around as a pop culture joke, but the biological implications Vanessa talks about are actually severe.
They really are. It's not just a joke.
Right. If my resting face is just neutral, like I'm not angry, I'm literally just sitting there thinking about my grocery list.
Yeah.
Why does the rest of the world interpret that as hostility?
It all comes down to how the human brain processes ambiguity. When we scan another human face, we are running a subconscious algorithm to answer one primary question.
Friend or foe?
Exactly. Is this person a friend or a foe? If someone is smiling, the brain easily categorizes them as a friend. If they're scowling, they're obviously a foe.
But a completely neutral face gives you nothing.
0 data points. And the human survival engine absolutely despises a vacuum of information. If it cannot definitively prove you are safe, it defaults to assuming you are dangerous.
That is wild. It just assumes the worst to protect itself.
Right. It projects a negative intent onto your blank canvas just to be safe. Therefore, a perfectly relaxed, neutral thinking face is biologically processed by onlookers as judgment, boredom, or even disdain.
That is a brutal design flaw in human neurobiology. I mean, I'm sitting there completely at peace, and my neutral face is actively sabotaging my social standing.
It's unfair, but it's how we're wired.
But wait, the obvious countermeasure to this, just smiling all the time, is explicitly warned against in the source. Vanessa is adamant about this rule. Do not fake smile.
Yes, she is very firm on that.
But society demands polite compliance. If my boss makes a terrible joke in a meeting, or if I'm checking out at the grocery store, society expects me to smile. How does the science account for corporate survival if we shouldn't fake smile?
Well, the science accounts for it by tracking micro-expressions. Specifically, the difference between a Pan Am smile, which is the fake one, and a Duchenne smile, which is genuine.
Okay, break down the difference for me.
When you fake smile because your boss made a bad joke, you are consciously activating the zygomatic major muscle. That's the muscle that just pulls the corners of your lips upward.
So just the mouth is moving.
Right. But a genuine smile is involuntary. It requires the activation of the orbicularis oculi muscle.
And what does that one do?
That's the muscle that crinkles the corners of your eyes and creates those little crow's feet. You literally cannot consciously flex this muscle.
Oh, wow. So when I fake smile at my boss, I am literally only moving the bottom half of my face.
Exactly. And your boss's subconscious brain detects that millisecond mismatch. The mouth says happy, but the eyes are completely dead.
That sounds creepy when you put it like that.
It is creepy to our brains. The brain registers this mismatch not just as awkward, but as a predatory anomaly. It triggers the exact same neurological alarm bells as someone actively lying to you.
Wait, really? A fake smile is processed like a lie.
Yes. You are doing infinitely more damage to your trustworthiness by deploying a fake smile than you would by simply maintaining a neutral expression. A fake smile is registered as an active attempt to manipulate the environment.
Okay, I see the logic, but that leaves us trapped in this terrible biological catch-22. We can't be neutral because people think we hate them.
Right.
And we can't fake smile because people think we're manipulating them. So what are the actual physical mechanics of fixing this? How do I find the middle ground without feeling robotic?
You utilize something called microlifts. Yeah,
Microliths.
you do not need to stretch your mouth into a full performative grin. Instead, you change your internal monologue to physically alter the micro-expressions on your face.
How does that work in real time?
You actively pull your thoughts towards something genuinely pleasant about the person or the interaction. Like you find one thing to appreciate in that moment.
So you trick your own brain.
Essentially, yes. This slight internal shift causes a tiny millimeter of upward movement in the cheeks, and it softens the gaze. It signals engagement. You're abandoning the dead neutral resting state, not by performing a smile, but by genuinely cultivating a state of presence.
Ah, so the body really does follow the mind. But it's not just the face, right? There's an entirely separate channel of data transmission happening simultaneously, the voice.
Oh, the voice is huge.
Vanessa highlights how one single word can change how people perceive you based entirely on inflection. I mean, we spend hours drafting the perfect script for a presentation, but the delivery of a single word can strip us of all our authority.
The most prevalent example of this, and we all hear it constantly, is the uptalk phenomenon.
Oh, where everything sounds like a question.
Exactly. It's when the vocal pitch rises at the end of a declarative sentence. When you state your name or your price in a negotiation, using an upward inflection, you are acoustically signaling a lack of confidence.
Like, hi, I'm the host.
Right. You are subconsciously asking the listener for validation, like you need them to agree that you are the host. Conversely, ending a statement with a downward inflection, just dropping the pitch slightly at the end of the sentence, signals finality.
It sounds so much more grounded.
It signals absolute certainty and competence.
Which is a perfect segue because competence is half of what drives every human interaction. This brings us to the core architectural framework of Vanessa's research, the warmth and competence matrix.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this matrix is everything. It encompasses all those 97 cues we mentioned earlier.
Right, and if we're going to understand how to manipulate these variables, we need to really get how this matrix operates in the real world.
Well, in social psychology, practically every snap judgment we make about another person boils down to these two primal assessments.
Which are?
First, warmth, meaning, what are this person's intentions toward me? Are they empathetic? Are they collaborative? Are they safe?
Basically, are they a good person?
Right. And second, competence, meaning, does this person have the capacity to carry out those intentions? Are they intelligent, powerful, effective? Every micro behavior, every vocal shift, and every physical posture you adopt is essentially a tool to adjust these two specific dials.
I picture this as like a massive audio mixing board. You have a warmth slider and a competence slider.
That's a great way to visualize it.
And if you push one slider too far without balancing the other, the audio just clips. You distort the signal and ruin the interaction. Like, if you crank the warmth slider all the way up but leave competence at the bottom, you fall into what Vanessa calls the danger zone.
The pushover danger zone.
Exactly. You're the incredibly sweet, highly empathetic colleague, but because you project zero competence cues, people see you as a total pushover. You're the person everyone dumps their extra work onto because they know you don't have the authority to say no.
And you, listening to this, need to ask yourself, are you naturally seen as that warm friend who constantly gets walked over?
Because the inverse is equally catastrophic. If you slam the competence slider up to maximum, but totally zero out your warmth cues, you enter the cold danger zone.
Right. You are perceived as highly capable, intelligent, and effective, but you are also seen as robotic, calculating, and intimidating.
Which means your team might respect your output, but they will not want to collaborate with you.
They'll actually withhold critical information from you because they don't trust your intentions. Trust requires warmth. Respect requires competence. Charisma is the exact intersection of both.
So the 97 cues are the actual levers we pull to balance that board. Let's get into the physical mechanics of this. I want to start with the body part that apparently does the absolute heaviest lifting for both warmth and competence.
The hands.
Yes, the hands. Here's where it gets really interesting. Why is human psychology so obsessively focused on what other people are doing with their hands?
It is the most direct remnant of our evolutionary survival programming. When our ancient ancestors encountered a stranger, the face might indicate mood, but the hands indicated immediate lethal threat.
Because they could be holding a rock.
Exactly. We are hardwired to track the hands to ensure they aren't holding a weapon. When your hands are visible, relaxed, and moving rhythmically with your speech, it triggers a deep neurological sense of safety in the observer.
The observer's brain effectively sighs in relief. No weapons, no threat.
That's exactly it.
Which means if I'm giving a presentation and I shove my hands in my pockets, or if I'm sitting at a negotiation table and I just keep my hands hidden under the desk on my lap, I'm actively preventing the other person's brain from establishing baseline trust.
Precisely. You are signaling concealment. And the
Yeah.
brain assumes that if you are physically concealing your hands, you are cognitively concealing your intentions.
Wow. So hidden hands equal hidden agenda.
You are instantly perceived as less trustworthy. So the hand tricks and power cues Vanessa discusses are all about leveraging this visibility.
Like the open palm gestures.
Yes, open palm-up gestures signal extreme warmth and vulnerability. It is a biological submission cue that says, I have absolutely nothing to hide.
And what about competence cues with the hands?
Palm-down gestures are your competence cues. They signal command, grounding, and authority.
Okay, but let me push back on the idea that more hand movement is inherently better. I mean, I've been in meetings with people who are so hyper-animated, their hands are just flying everywhere.
We've all seen that.
Right. They look like they're trying to flag down a helicopter. At what point do these hand tricks cross the line from projecting charismatic competence into projecting just frantic, chaotic anxiety?
That is a crucial distinction. It's the difference between deliberate gesturing and emotional leakage. Confident, powerful hand gestures are spatially contained.
What does that mean, spatially contained?
They operate within a very specific physical boundary, what body language experts call the box. This box extends from the top of your shoulders down to your waist.
Oh, okay. So like a square on your torso.
Exactly. When your gestures remain inside that box, they amplify your words and project controlled power. But the moment your hands break outside that box, like flailing above your head or swinging wildly outside your torso, they cease to be communication tools.
They become a liability.
They become indicators of emotional dysregulation. The brain reads wild, uncontained movement as a sign that the person is overwhelmed and totally out of control.
That spatial containment is fascinating because it links directly to how we manage the physical space between ourselves and others.
Proxemics.
Right. There is a specific warning in the data about leaning too much towards someone. Now, we are universally taught that leaning in is the ultimate sign of engagement. It shows you're listening. Why is leaning suddenly a liability?
Because of proxemics, the study of how humans utilize space. Leaning in is a warmth cue, yes, but only up to a very strict invisible boundary.
Every human being has that invisible bubble around them.
Exactly. And that bubble usually extends about 18 inches to 4 feet from their body, depending on the cultural context. If you lean in so far that you breach that intimate zone, it doesn't matter how warm your face is or how visible your hands are.
You've crossed a line.
You have committed a spatial violation. The other person's amygdala immediately hijacks their brain, signaling that they are trapped. The feeling of being physically crowded instantly overrides and nullifies every single positive cue you're attempting to broadcast.
It's crazy to think about. So mastering your own body is really only half the equation you have to master your placement within the environment too.
And this naturally transitions into how these micro cues actually shape the macro reality of our lives.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Vanessa discusses the luck experiment, which fundamentally redefines what it means to be a quote-unquote lucky person. We tend to view luck as this mystical probability field that randomly blesses certain individuals, right?
Right, like some people are just born lucky.
But the science suggests luck is actually just a byproduct of physical openness.
The data on this is incredibly revealing. Researchers have found that individuals who self-identify as lucky do not actually experience a higher volume of statistically improbable events.
So they are actually winning the lottery more often?
No. What they possess is a specific combination of open body language and an engaged cognitive state. In experiments, lucky people physically notice opportunities like a $20 bill placed on the sidewalk or a key piece of information in a newspaper simply because their heads are up, their posture is open, and their visual field is expanded.
Wow, and the unlucky people.
People who consider themselves unlucky routinely walk right past the exact same opportunities because their posture is hunched, their gaze is downward, and their internal focus literally blocks out external data.
That is mind-blowing. Your body language literally dictates your perceptual reality. If your posture is closed, your brain just stops rendering the opportunities in your environment.
It filters them out.
And this expands beyond just noticing $20 bills on the sidewalk. It applies to noticing other people. The research points out that popularity and success are highly contagious, but so is toxicity.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you want to curate a better environment, you have to look at the physical cues of the people around you.
It operates through the mechanism of emotional contagion, which is driven by our mirror neurons. We are biologically programmed to subconsciously mimic the micro-expressions and postures of the people we spend the most time with.
So we literally become who we hang out with on a muscular level.
Exactly. If you are constantly embedded in toxic relationships, surrounded by people who use defensive, closed-off, or aggressive power cues, your mirror neurons will force you to adopt those same exact cues just to survive in that ecosystem.
Your baseline shifts toward hostility.
Right. Conversely, embedding yourself in an environment of highly competent, warm individuals forces your nervous system to regulate and mirror their charismatic cues. You literally absorb their social fluency.
So your body language doesn't just change how others see you, it changes who you attract. But here's where all this data collides with modern reality.
The modern world complicates things.
Massively. We are talking about mirror neurons, open postures, observing the hands of strangers. This all assumes we are operating in a shared physical space with uninterrupted visual access. But we don't live in that world anymore.
Not at all.
We live in a world of wearable tech, remote work, and digital dating. And Vanessa hits on a profound, incredibly modern crisis, the idea that our AirPods are actively killing our friendships and our ability to connect.
From a sociological standpoint, it really is a catastrophic shift in human behavior. The foundation of community relies on what sociologists call weak ties.
What's a weak tie?
These are the micro-interactions you have with the barista, the person sitting next to you on the subway, or the stranger in the elevator. These brief, serendipitous interactions rely entirely on the approach cues we just discussed.
Like visible hands and an open posture.
Right. Visible hands, an open posture, a neutral to warm face. When you place a piece of wearable tech in your ears, you are erecting a visible, impenetrable barrier. You are universally broadcasting the ultimate closed cue, do not disturb.
You are physically present, but socially completely absent.
Exactly. You cut off all weak ties.
Okay, I understand the sociological loss of weak ties, but let's be realistic about the modern environment for a second. If I am commuting on a packed subway, the environment is loud, it's overstimulating, and frankly, completely unpredictable. AirPods are a necessary mental health tool. They provide an audio boundary in a world that constantly violates our space.
That's a very fair point.
So how do we balance the need for personal boundaries with the desire to remain open to serendipitous connections? How do we not just close ourselves off from the world?
The reconciliation requires acute intentionality. You cannot allow wearable tech to be your default state 100% of the time. You must consciously curate your moments of openness.
So it's about choosing when to deploy them.
Right. If you are on a chaotic, overstimulating commute, deploy the AirPods. That is a strategic defense. But the moment you cross the threshold into your office building, or when you step up to the counter to order coffee, you must physically remove them.
You have to manufacture the space for connection?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to utilize the 6 questions to connect with someone that Vanessa outlines in the source, you have to be acoustically available to actually ask them. Connection is no longer the default state of society. It is an action you must deliberately initiate.
Wow. And the challenge of modern communication goes even further when we remove the physical body entirely. Think about it. A massive portion of our relationships, our networking, and our dating lives happens through text messaging.
Oh, texting is a whole different minefield.
Right. We lose the hands, we lose the facial microexpressions, we lose the vocal inflection. We are completely stripped of millions of years of evolutionary tools and reduced to pixels on a screen. How do you possibly translate the warmth and competence matrix into a text message?
You have to understand that the human brain has a severe negativity bias. When the brain receives a text message, it recognizes the absence of nonverbal data. And to protect itself, it fills that void with a negative assumption.
Give me an example.
Okay, if someone texts you the word, okay, with the period at the end and no other context.
Oh, I hate that text.
C. The recipient's brain will almost always interpret that period as a sign of abruptness, anger, or passive aggression. Because the text is inherently devoid of tone, you have to aggressively and proactively manufacture warmth.
But doesn't over-communicating warmth in a text make you seem unhinged or desperate? Like if I use 5 exclamation points and 3 smiley emojis, I lose all my competence cues. I look like an overeager golden retriever.
Which is exactly why calibration is essential. You do not need 5 exclamation points. You need linguistic warmth.
Linguistic warmth, what does that look like?
The data suggests replacing passive, flat language with active, emotionally descriptive language. Instead of replying, got it, you reply, understood, I'm really looking forward to seeing the results.
Ah, so you spell out the emotion.
Yes. You explicitly state the emotion that your face would normally convey. You have to use your vocabulary to do the heavy lifting that your micro-expressions used to do. Pacing also matters, the speed of your reply, the length of the text relative to the sender's text.
All of these become the new digital cues for competence and warmth. That is a fascinating translation of biology into technology. But, everything we have discussed so far has been offensive strategy. We've been dissecting how to be liked, how to project power, how to manufacture warmth.
Right, the proactive stuff.
But there is a dark side to these mechanics. Section 7 of the data focuses entirely on defense, deception, boundaries, and intimidation. Because if you know how to use these cues, well, so do the people trying to manipulate you.
The structural flow of Vanessa's interview is very telling here. The topic of how to spot a liar is so critical that it is actually addressed multiple times throughout the data.
Which highlights a universal, deeply rooted human anxiety. We desperately want to connect, but we are absolutely terrified of being exploited.
Exactly. Understanding the 97 cues isn't just about projecting an image. It is about establishing a diagnostic baseline for everyone around you.
It's essentially like learning martial arts. You spend years learning the exact mechanics of a strike, not necessarily because you want to hit someone, but so your brain can immediately recognize the precise shift in someone else's shoulder right before they try to hit you.
That's a brilliant way to look at it.
So how exactly do we use this matrix to spot deception?
You look for the cognitive leaks. Deception is neurologically exhausting. It requires an immense amount of cognitive load.
Because they're juggling so much information.
Yes. When someone is lying, their brain is simultaneously constructing the false narrative, monitoring your facial expressions to see if you believe them, and trying to manually regulate their own physical cues to appear natural.
That sounds like way too much for a brain to handle.
It is. That is too much processing for the conscious brain to handle smoothly. Consequently, the subconscious system begins to leak.
What does a leak look like physically?
It looks like a timing mismatch. The hands might execute an open, warm gesture, but it happens a fraction of a second after the verbal statement, rather than simultaneously.
Oh, because there's a lag in processing.
Exactly. Or their vocal inflection drops into a competence cue, but their shoulders pull up toward their ears in a micro-shrug of uncertainty. Because you are now educated in the baseline of these cues, your brain will flag these asymmetrical movements. You will see the matrix breaking down in real time.
That is incredibly empowering. But the defense mechanism goes both ways, right? It's not just about protecting yourself from liars. It is about protecting your relationships from yourself.
What do you mean?
There is a section dedicated to managing your own intimidation factor. What happens when you have mastered the competence cues, the downward vocal inflection, the palm-down gestures, the expansive posture, and they work too well? You end up bulldozing the people you are trying to lead.
Yes. This is the pinnacle of cue fluency conscious downregulation.
Tell me more about that.
If you are highly competent, but you notice the person you are speaking to is physically shrinking, crossing their arms, or stepping backward, which indicates their amygdala is perceiving you as a threat, you have to dynamically adjust.
We have to dial it back.
Yes. You intentionally soften your vocal cadence. You introduce a slight head tilt, which exposes the carotid artery.
Wait, exposing the neck.
Yeah, exposing the carotid artery is a universal biological signal of trust and non-aggression. It's incredibly vulnerable. You also physically step out of their spatial bubble. You purposefully transition from dominance back to connection.
You take the invisible strings of the interaction and you consciously loosen the tension. That is absolute mastery.
It really is.
We have charted an immense psychological landscape today. We started by destroying the myth of genetic awkwardness and leaning into the neurological flexibility of the ambivert.
And we covered a lot of ground.
We explored the survival mechanisms behind the resting bee face, the evolutionary danger of a fake smile, and the absolute necessity of mastering the warmth and competence matrix. We dissected the spatial boundaries of our hands, the environmental contagion of luck, the sociological barrier of AirPods.
And finally, the defensive martial arts of spotting deception and down-regulating intimidation.
It is a comprehensive blueprint for decoding the invisible forces that govern human behavior.
It really is the user manual for human connection.
And the ultimate goal is application. The data concludes with how to integrate this knowledge. So here is the challenge for you listening to this right now. The very next time you cross a threshold into a new environment, whether you're walking into a boardroom, stepping onto a subway car, or just walking into your own living room, I want you to run a diagnostic on your physical broadcast.
Just do a quick body scan.
Exactly. What is your face doing? Are you performing a fake smile to appease the room? Are you radiating a closed-off neutral stare? Are your hands hidden, signaling concealment? You now possess the grammar of this silent language. You have the power to actively write the script.
And I want to leave you with a final provocative mechanism regarding the body-brain connection. Throughout this deep dive, we have discussed how the brain commands the body to send signals to the outside world. If you feel confident, your posture opens.
But it works the other way too, right?
It does. The neurobiological highway runs in both directions. The concept of embodied cognition suggests that the physical state of your body literally dictates the chemical state of your mind.
Wait, so your posture changes your brain chemistry?
Yes. What if, simply by pulling your shoulders back, exposing your hands, and lifting your chin, you can force your brain to manufacture the neurochemistry of confidence in real time? I invite you, in this exact second, to alter your physical posture. Open your chest. Drop your shoulders. See how quickly your mind complies with the physical reality you just created.
Your body isn't just the instrument, it's the composer. We've unmasked the silent language. Now it's up to you to start speaking it. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you on the next one.